Hello, welcome to Live from America podcast. This is Hatem alongside me, Noam Dworman, the owner of the Comedy Cellar. Hi, Noam.
Hi, Hatem. Hi.
Great to see you as usual. And we have Dan Natterman supposed to be here. He might show up at any time, but he is late. All know Dan Natterman, our friend and comedian and author. And we have our guest of honors here, uh, Christine DeMaria. Hi, Christine. If you, Christine is we had her as a guest a while ago, and things dramatically changed to the best. It's one of the people that, I don't know if you remember, we had a conversation at the Olive Tree after we did the show last time, and you were telling me about your dream, and you did it. You did exactly what you said you were going to do.
I don't remember having that conversation. What did we talk about?
You did tell me that you want to be a lawyer one day, and you want to study law, and you want to help sex workers, and that's what
Well,
you did.
well, Hatem, you have to start by telling the listeners, her backstory, or having her tell the backstory.
Well, I'm going, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
read her
yeah,
bio first. Um,
yeah.
so Christine DeMaria is the founder of Switch, Sex Workers in Transition Compassion Home, an organization that supports sex workers in their current circumstances, and she helped them during the transition. She was a stripper for a decade, for like more than a decade, and survived childhood human trafficking, and now a second year law student in New York Law School, and won the 2023 David Price, a 200,000 grant given to New Yorkers who have an idea to make New York a better place. And she was a stripper comedian, and she was a guest here before. Christine, great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So if you can tell us a little bit about what happened. How did you decide to become a lawyer and to start Switch and all that? And when we met the last time, you were a comedian and you were performing. And then after the show, we were sitting a little bit, we were talking about comedy, and you told me about, your dream one day that you're going to be a lawyer. I'm sure you don't remember, but I remember that. So tell us, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, just to recap, I survived childhood human trafficking, and then in my 20s, I stripped for a decade, and I thought it would be really funny to turn it into a stand-up comedy act called The Stripper Comedian. I had rapid success, probably faster than anybody's ever had in the industry. And at some point, I ended up out in LA, and I met Danny Robinson, who's VP of APA. And he said that the act was not ready to be signed and that I needed to keep working and find myself more. And I didn't fully understand what he meant at the time. And I was kind of frustrated, but I kept working. And then when the pandemic happened, the comedy tour that I was on got canceled. So I went back to Florida, and, was going to, everyone thought the pandemic was going to last like a week or two. So I stayed in my house, and I started writing a book called A Sale of Two Titties. And I illustrated 23 drawings of the 20 craziest things that I'd seen while stripping. And I thought that it would be really funny to be able to sell this book at comedy shows. But as I was writing it, I realized that every single story was actually really sad, and there was no way to make it funny. Like, I was writing about human trafficking, and I was writing about, like the real darkness in the industry. And so a lot of things had happened at that time. One of them was that they asked me to speak to the board of directors at Camilla's House, which is a homeless shelter in Miami. And I told kind of like the bullet point story about what happened to me as a kid. And this lawyer asked me if I had ever pressed charges. And I said no. And she asked why. And I said, because I was 16 when I escaped, and I didn't know how. So she started drafting a lot of letters to the FBI. It's a really long story, but now there is an active investigation, and that was all very influential. In addition to that, the decade that I stripped, I saw sex workers face all kinds of discrimination, and their pain was not being taken seriously, and their motives were being questioned, and it was really difficult for them to get good legal representation. So I found all of that to be very frustrating. I read a couple of really influential books. And then I have a mentor who I met through stand-up comedy, who's an attorney. And we were talking.
I hope it's not Dan Natterman.
No, it's not Dan Naturman. Never helped me with anything. No, his name is Jay Silverberg. And so my best friend is a doctor of psychology. So I was talking to her about her job, and she said that it's really frustrating being a doctor of psychology because people tell you all these horrors that happen to them, and that Dan Natterman.
I told you he's gonna show up in a long time. Keep going. He's in mute.
Okay.
Sorry, sorry, Hatem. You know, we're usually at 5, so I messed up. Anyway.
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
How are you?
It's 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
Dan, why didn't you ever help me in 1L?
What's that?
I said, why didn't you ever help me in 1L?
You never asked.
I asked all the time. You're a liar. I have screenshots.
Yeah. With any question you asked, I answered.
No, you never helped me.
All right, wait, could we just rewind the story for a second, because I don't know the details. What when you say you were human trafficking at a young age, can you? I mean, unless it's painful to talk about, like, how does that happen? And I don't even have a good understanding for what human trafficking means.
She did mention that it's an active FBI investigation. She cannot talk about details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, just in short, it was very bad, and it spanned the entire country, and I can't talk much more about it.
Okay.
But where I was at, so I was talking to my best friend, who's a doctor of psychology, and realized that I probably did not want to be a psychologist. I was talking to Jay Silverberg, my mentor, who I met through comedy, and realized that I really wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be able to affect change. So I started taking.
Good.
You heard that?
What is that?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's his son. Good.
Oh, okay. So I started taking classes at 2 different universities online full-time at the same time, and finished a bachelor's degree in under 2 years. And then I studied for the LSAT and applied to all 13 New York, New Jersey law schools. I received several full ride offers and a couple of others that were really high scholarship amounts. For a million and one reasons, I chose New York Law School. And then I started in August of 2022. Then in November of 2022, I was riding the subway, and I looked up and I saw an advertisement, and it said, apply to the David Prize. All you have to do is be a New Yorker with an idea to make New York a better place. And I was like, I'm a New Yorker. I have an idea. And my idea is called Switch, Sex Workers in Transition Compassion Home, which supports sex workers in their current circumstances and helps them transition into economically sustainable careers if they want to. And because I lived it, and because I successfully transitioned, I mean, you know, I haven't graduated or passed the bar yet, but we're getting there. I have a very thorough understanding about what challenges sex workers face in that transition. And I've been able to design programs that I really believe are going to be able to be influential and help them. So I went through the whole process to apply for the David Prize. And then last summer, I found out that I won. So it was a $200,000 grant.
Wow.
And since then, Lawyers Alliance accepted Switch as a pro bono client, and we're working toward 501c3 nonprofit status now. When that comes, which I really hope it'll be here by this summer, I want to open a physical location for Switch and be able to provide services for sex workers. And then when I graduate, I will join Switch as in-house counsel. And I don't really want to practice law per se, but I want to be a client advocate and sign referral agreements with attorneys in various areas of law who are good at their area, and then be able to oversee the case and make sure that sex workers are being treated with dignity and respect.
I suspect Dan could probably give you better advice about, his experience with sex workers than he can with 1L law. Now, since you can't talk about your personal matters, but about sex workers, should we feel bad for sex workers in general? Like, is anytime you call a sex worker, or is that an act of oppression in some way?
No, I think the majority of sex workers prefer to be called sex workers and not other versions of that term. And I do thoroughly believe that a fair number of sex workers have chosen that path and should have their choice be respected.
They've chosen it, but is there usually something dark that led them to choose that, which in a certain way you're enabling them or preventing them from turning their life around in some way, or no?
No, not necessarily. I think that society has a lot of preconceived notions about sex workers, and very few of them are accurate. In any pool of people, there's a couple that are nuts. There's a couple that are on drugs. There's a couple that survived childhood molestation. There's whatever it is. But there are plenty of sex workers who are perfectly normal, educated, came from two-parent households. And so it's really impossible to pinpoint one.
Well, there's a gamut, of course, Noam. I mean, there's a stripper on the one hand who might be working their way through school, and then a prostitute would be I guess the most likely type of sex worker to have psychological issues. Although even there, I've met prostitutes that swear up and down that it was their choice and they have no regrets.
Did they enjoy their work?
Yeah, I know a lot of sex workers that enjoy their work. And
even having sex for money?
Excuse me?
Including having sex for money?
Yeah. No, there are a lot, I'm serious, a lot of full service sex workers that would not want to have it any other way and have choices, and they could easily transition, but until they're ready and they want to transition, no one's going to be able to force them. If they're happy doing that, why would they stop?
So when you say help them transition, you mean changing careers and stuff like that, being, accepted? Like, we hear these stories about like the OnlyFans, a lot of girls, like there's a story in the news, it happens a lot, but recently about a nurse that got fired 2 days after, like that kind of work that you would like to do, right? Like somebody did, like, say, OnlyFans, and then, the work find out and they fire them, they don't like it. And you want to help in that in transition into regular job and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, that's talking about two different things. So what you're talking about is blatant discrimination against sex work, and I think that's ridiculous. But what I'm talking about is somebody who's a sex worker and they really want to become a lawyer.
Yeah.
For example, there's a lot of barriers in the way for sex workers.
So give us an example of the barriers like that can happen.
Yeah. So for example, a sex worker who is applying to law school might not have something substantive that they can put on their resume. And so one of the things that Switch would be able to do is, going through the program, I would be able to provide a reference for the person saying, they completed this program and they have some professional qualification toward whatever direction they're trying to go in.
I don't know what to say. I'm on one hand, I'm happy to hear what you say, and I'd like to believe it's true that they're happy and then they're mentally healthy and not coerced in any way, either through life experience or through actual coercion to do this kind of work. But there's something about it which, if I imagine my own daughter becoming having sex for money, I would just imagine in some way that something went wrong for her. But maybe that's just old fashioned in me. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's,
I definitely don't want my wife having sex for money. I mean, no more than like the marriage arrangement. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm saying, like,
I saw something really interesting recently
Yeah.
about if you think that there's a difference between a sex worker and a
wife?
a stay-at-home mom, yeah, you're fooling yourself.
Well, except that it's like a private, it's like in-house counsel. Like she's my sex worker, but she only has one client.
you know Caitlin Bailey, Christine?
No,
she's a former call girl. She did comedy, but I don't think she's doing comedy anymore. But she has this. She has an organization called Old Pros, I think it's called, and they advocate for legalization of prostitution.
I advocate for decriminalization, which is
decriminalization.
But why do you advocate for sorry, Dan, go ahead.
But she swears up and down that, again, she was a call girl. She did it of her own free will. Did not do it because she had no other options, and had a good time doing it. So I can only take her at her word.
It's absolutely possible.
What did you say? Just I had a question. I lost it.
Decriminalization.
Oh yeah, what's the difference between decriminalization and legalization in your mind that you support one but not the other?
So I support decriminalization because there are a lot of barriers for sex workers if they were victims of crimes, where because it's criminalized, they can't come forward and say, this is the situation and I got raped, because then they're like, well, you were doing something illegal. The reason that I don't support full legalization is because I think that it takes the power away from the sex workers if they were victimized, because if it's fully legal, then the buyer is not able to be if it's fully legalized, then the buyer's not able to be prosecuted.
Prosecuted for what?
For some potential crime, for example, a rape.
Why not?
Because it's legalized.
The rape's not legal. It still has to. Can't. I don't think.
I think it just muddies the water too much to make it legalized.
All right. I don't. That doesn't sound right to me. As I know the law, but I'm no Dan Naturman, so I don't know. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, what year are you in law school, Christina?
About to finish 2L.
Oh, okay. Good for you. You seem like you're in a great place. Just hearing you and seeing you, by the way.
What's your favorite subject in law school?
Contracts.
What a surprise. Yeah, I liked contracts and torts. I loved first year law school. I didn't the last 2 years. It was excruciating for me. The first year law school was one of my maybe my favorite year in school of any kind.
Really? That's good.
Isn't first school of any school is always the greatest?
No, everybody says 1L is the worst.
No, I liked 1L. I found it interesting.
That's good.
So we have three.
I had my first kiss as a 2L. Now, believe it or not, my first kiss ever took place in law school.
You had to pay was that a sex worker?
No, you don't pay. You don't typically kiss a sex worker. No, this was an actual, non remunerated thing. But
that's probably her story is the opposite. She's like, my last kiss was in L. Nothing. Okay.
Nothing.
Anyway. So we have three lawyers. Noam, you were telling us before that why you stopped practicing law or never were interested in practicing law. You got bored.
No, I know. So I remember very well. I went as a summer clerk. I was a pretty good law student, and I was a hot prospect. People wanted to hire me, and I went as a summer clerk to this law firm in Los Angeles that did a lot of entertainment law and stuff like that. And for people who don't know, when you summer clerk somewhere, you kind of work for 2 months and they wine you and dine you, and they also give you some work to do to see, if you can do good work. And then at the end, they usually make you an offer of a job that would come after your third year, and they try to sell you on their law firm. And this particular law firm, the way they tried to sell us was that in your seventh year of being a partner, which means you basically 7 years as an associate, and then 7 more, 14 or 15 years into it.
You'd only be 40 though.
You could have a 1 year sabbatical with pay. And all these lawyers were just living for this sabbatical, like, 2 more years, I'm going to have my year off with pay to do what I want. And I remember it very clearly because I'd been raised in a home where my father used to tell me, Noam, most people live for the weekends. They hate their work. Don't ever be one of those people who hates their work and lives for the weekend. Do what you want every day. And it occurred to me that I just didn't want to wait 14 or 15 years to have the first time to do what would really make me happy and do what I wanted. So I told my father that I thought I should pause on jumping into the profession and see if anything else could work out for me. And then he asked me if I wouldn't. He was okay with it as long as I completed the school and took the bar. And that was fine with me. I never intended not to do it. It would have been a waste of time to not take the bar. So I took the bar and I passed, and then I started playing guitar and that with a band, and that turned into a nightclub, and then just one thing after another. So now I think if the Comedy Cellar went bad and I didn't have any savings and I had to actually go back to work as a lawyer, I've said this, I think I would hang myself. Like I don't mean it figuratively. I don't at this point in my life, having been my own boss for so long, to start having to wake up at 6 a.m, put on a suit and tie, going to work, get chewed out by the boss, worry about making a mistake, all that shit. It's so beyond my mental ability now, and I would feel like such a failure in life, not because there's anything wrong with being a lawyer, but because I found myself having failed and having to go back to it. I think I might commit suicide.
And you would do so through strangulation.
No,
through the tie, when he's putting the tie on.
Okay, so hanging myself was figurative. The killing myself was not. Yeah.
But it's great to have it as a background. What about your story, Naturman?
What's that?
What about your story?
Well, first of all, in the old days, you take some Seconal, but you can't get that nowadays.
I'm sure there's. I think the best way I would do it. Well, now I have a Tesla that complicates things, but I would get in my garage, turn on the car, and go to sleep. Like I'd stay up all night, be really tired, maybe take some sort of Ambien or something, get in the car, and I think that's the best way to go, right?
Yeah, I don't know why more people don't do that.
I don't know why we're talking about that.
Well, a lot of people don't have garages.
Naturman, what's your story of leaving law?
I went to law. I was I graduated Penn and UPenn, and I was, because of my poor performance at UPenn, I wasn't successful in obtaining work, and so I went to law school for that reason, basically. But during law school, I started doing stand-up comedy, and I always wanted to be a stand-up comic. I had dreams of stardom. I'm not going to lie. I didn't get into stand-up comedy to be doing what I'm doing, to be working, making a living, but no stardom, no glory. But at that time, I thought that would happen. So I went down that road instead.
I feel back then it was easier road. Like you kind of like you do comedy, you get a sitcom, you become Seinfeld.
Well, it seemed easy because I only saw the people that were doing it. I didn't see
But that was the only reason back then. Even the Tonight Show doesn't mean anything now. It used to be a dream.
I saw, I've said this a million times. I saw like these guys on the Leno and Tonight Show, and I said, I could do it. I thought that if you could go on these shows and be as funny as these guys, that you would have what they had. That was how I thought in those days. It seemed logical to me, and I think I've accomplished that. I think I'm as funny as those guys were that got sitcoms, but that's not how it works. You don't just get a sitcom because you're at a certain level of funny. But in any case. But there's still moments that I'm glad that I chose this. Sometimes you're on stage and a new joke works, and and you feel gratified. But if I had to do it over again, I'm not sure, but there's no turning back now.
I have, I have a question.
Go ahead, Christine.
So since both of you went through law school and then didn't practice as lawyers, in life in general, do you feel more equipped than the average person to read a contract? Or let's say you encountered the police, they pulled you over or something. Do you feel like you have a better handle on how to deal with that situation than someone that didn't go to law school?
Excellent question. Noam, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I feel better equipped than someone with no knowledge. I don't know that I might not have accumulated that aspect of knowledge on my own. My father never went to law school, and he, over time, became pretty good at understanding contract law through bitter experiences. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any regrets about going to law school. I think it helps me. It helps me. It helps in my self-esteem in some way. Not that I'm all high on myself, but that if I hadn't done that, I would not have the objective measure of my own ability to do certain things. It's nice to actually do something, get into I went to a good law school, and to get into it and to graduate and do well as kind of an objective measure against your peers and stuff. If you don't have that, you really never, am I smart? Am I not smart? You don't know really where you stand. So I like having that kind of objective measure, my own ability.
It's a good background. And also you have some language that you can talk as a lawyer if you want to.
Yeah.
So if we go back to
Wait, Dan didn't get to answer. And then I want to talk about something else, but go ahead, Dan. Dan, go ahead.
Well, as you know, Christine, in law school, you don't learn everything about it. As far as getting pulled over by the cops, we didn't really discuss that in law school about what your rights are. And of course, laws vary by state. So even if I knew the law cold in New York State, I might not know the law in another state. So
it's also hard to come up with it when you're drunk.
So, there's a few things I still retain. It was a long time ago. As a general matter, I don't think it's a great practical value. No, I think you can just go online and learn the law you need to learn. You want to learn what to do in the event the police pull you over. You go online, you read it, what your rights are. Watch TikTok. There's a million videos of these guys that get pulled over, or that do those videos with the cops. But
I'll tell you what the law does give me. I'm astonished when I watch legal experts on major networks how often I'm like, that's not right. I look at them, they're not right. It's amazing how often they are wrong, and how often, it's not that I remember it precisely, but my gut feel for the law is good still, and I'm like, no, that can't be right. And I look it up, and sure enough, it's not right.
What it took me a couple of years in law school to figure out, and what I tell anybody that goes to law school is, if you're reading a case and it doesn't make sense to you, it's possible that the reason it doesn't make sense is because it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Laws are man-made things. Mm-hmm. And sometimes judges are human, and it doesn't have to make sense. Could be that the judge, especially Supreme Court decisions, which are oftentimes just kind of like they're trying to jam something into, to make it work because they just want a particular result. So anyway,
this I used to get in trouble in law school because I felt that way about Roe versus Wade. I have you read it yet? It was like the most. There's nothing about that decision that made any sense. But it was clear. It's interesting now looking back on it. It was always clear to me, and I was never pro-life or anything. It was just such a good example even back then of how people would reason their way because they agreed with the outcome, and they would just pretend that there was actually a penumbra in the Constitution which implied that women had a right to have abortions in the first trimester. I mean, it was just so absurd that the whole decision, and it's kind of amazing. I thought the decision would never be overturned, but that was just an example. Now it's a lot more people, even liberals, are ready to say, well, yeah, that was not a very good decision, but we like the outcome. But of course, back then, there was no ultrasound images and stuff. It was a lot easier to pass off a decision like that because we all had this conception that you're talking about some sort of like clump of cells. Like nobody who was reading Roe versus Wade in 1973 or 74 had any idea that there was a fetus that was sucking its thumb, that you're talking about such things. It made it. I doubt they would have come to the decision at least that way if we had modern technology. Too horrifying.
Yeah, I was going to talk about. I was going to go back 6, but you said you want to have something to talk about.
Oh yeah, so over Dan's. I don't know if it's mirror image. Is that your left shoulder? The Freedom Tower is over, Dan.
One, yes,
yeah.
Sir.
So
right there.
It's going to bring me in a roundabout way. So that Freedom Tower is such an awful building. I mean, that building could be. So we have, there's an iconic Empire State Building. You see that Empire State Building for a fraction of a second in any movie, immediately you're in New York City. The World Trade Centers were the same thing. It was just a very, very iconic image. The Freedom Tower, they spent 10 years arguing about it. And then they came up with the most generic looking skyscraper that really could be in Dubai, it could be in Chicago. It's not that it's ugly or anything. It just looks like one of its generation of, 100.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, 100 other buildings. And my idea at the time was, and I thought it was obvious that we should have built the World Trade Center exactly back as it was, but with an extra story as a fuck you. That was my idea at the time. I still stand by it. Of course, with modern fire codes, whatever it is. But anyway, this is a roundabout way of thinking about the terrorism issue. And so Hatem and I did an interview with Sam Harris, and then Hatem did so. All right, one of the challenges that I've had during this whole Israel thing is to be true to my own opinions about it, to not to get too sentimental, but not to dishonor what I feel my father would have expected from me at this time, and yet at the same time maintain with real affection the relationships with people who disagree with me, and especially Arabic people and Muslim people who disagree with me. And human psychology is not cooperative here because it, I think, is unbearably triggering, for lack of a better word, to see people that you identify with in a visceral way pulled out of rubble, children, women, whatever it is. It doesn't. There's almost no level of cold logic that can overcome that human reaction. In the same way, almost no parent can say, yeah, I know my son did the murder. Go ahead, execute him. I'm fine. I get it. He deserves it. Almost any normal parent will find some way to think that their child shouldn't be, the one to get punished for that. There's rare exceptions, but anyway. So I did this interview with Sam Harris. Now, Sam Harris is someone that I admire very much, and he speaks very, very bluntly about not Islam, but radical Islam. And Hatem saw this interview, and Hatem was insulted by some of the stuff that Sam said. And so I asked Hatem, or I allowed Hatem, I don't remember exactly how it came about, to record a response, so that, I'm gonna put out there what I want to put out there, but I'm certainly going to let him answer it in any way, which I think is actually good intellectual form. I believe in that anyway, but it also becomes doubly important when I'm dealing with friends, so that they don't think that I'm trying to censor debates, whatever it is. But so Hatem recorded an answer to Sam Harris, and now I have kind of the opposite thing, because we didn't speak about it. I thought that Hatem's response in certain ways was unfair to Sam. Mostly because, I know obviously you're going to answer, I think that the idea that he's racist, or that what he said was racist, I don't know if you actually called him racist, that he said it was racist, is quite unfair, because it would imply that he has some problem with the existential reality of a person being a Muslim or some characteristic, as opposed to what he lays out, which is a very specific list of factual problems that he sees with the problem of radical Islam in the world, and the pile of empirical data, which certainly doesn't indicate that his interpretation is crazy talk. And that's coming back to the building. We do have that ugly Freedom Tower where once stood the World Trade Center, which was brought down by well-to-do, educated, people whose heads were filled with this crazy radical ideology. And I wished only, like you scored some good points when I don't know the details, but they seem like good points about the fact that actually Muslims do attack each other's mosques and stuff like that. He had said some stuff to indicate otherwise. But on the basic issue of this ideology being impenetrable to reason, and that he used the word exorcism, that the world has to find some way to melt the ice of this very dangerous ideology, which is not believed by 1.9 billion Muslims, but by a critical mass enough that terrible things can happen in the world. I thought you sold him short. I don't think I know that he's not the person that you described. So go ahead.
I think first it was great that you had the other side, a point of view. I think it was very appreciated, not just from me, from a lot of people. And I think it gives, I saw some of the comments. It's like, oh, that's great to have another side. Obviously, it's not the same when you're not in the same place at the same time talking about it, so I get it. That some stuff he said, well, I didn't mean that, or some stuff that I said is not explainable because you're not challenged at the point. But that's why I tried in that video to be short and to be specific about, like I would say at point, like minute and 30 seconds. He said that, and the response to it is that for him, when he compared to Nazi, when he compared your friends to what.
Go, I'll let you finish. But just remember that word Nazi. I want to come back to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, when he compared when you said, "Oh, I have a lot of my friends and they're good," and it's like, well, your friends are selective group, given me, and that gives the impression of you that you are smart enough to select certain people versus certain people by a chance come to your life and you find out that they are good and they get to know each other, versus that you select. And he did tell him, like, no, actually, some of them I worked with them and stuff. And he, but when he said, but he said a point about the Nazis, is like, well, the Nazis, when they like invade, when they tried to change the mind of the people there, or Poland, or wherever they they didn't have to change their mind. They're already there. They just joined them. They find somebody open the door, which kind of feels like, okay, well, and he gave that example a few times about the Nazis and how Nazism in general spread because people were ready for it. And he was trying to say that, this is what, a lot of point with Islam is like that. The racist part was when he said what he says is racist was the part when he said about Saudi Arabia and these Gulf wars, these Gulf countries, they were just, the only thing they did is like they find oil, something in the ground, and one book 7 million years. And this is, he's talking about race and he's talking down to them. And, it's not only the oil, they contribute a lot of things in culture, so his way, I don't think, when he get cornered, I think he would say, like, I'm not talking about Islam, but he, at some point, and they said it specifically, he said that 1.7 billion, all of them need to say this. He said that specifically, all of them.
I don't think he said all of them, but leave it. Look,
in that specific part,
this is a problem, and it applies to many issues, which is that it's become off limits to say things which can be accused of being prejudiced or bigoted or whatever it is. So this becomes now a tactic. I'm not really accusing you of it, but in a certain way I am. But I don't think I think that you're just falling into it. It becomes a tactic to start using adjectives about people. And then that becomes the conversation rather than
Sure, yeah, but
the actual merit.
it's not what I was saying. You know,
So when
sorry, Christine.
Oh, no, I have narcolepsy. Don't pay
yeah.
attention to me.
So the comparison to Nazis is not to call you a Nazi. It's an example of another ideology that preached murder, that seemed to be okay with unspeakable acts. And the mind says, well, okay, well, how did we conquer that one? And
But
what
it's
lessons?
it's not the same thing. It's not Islam is not the ideology. It's people that think of it is the ideology.
Right,
Nazis,
right. That's we've had this argument before. I don't know what he would say. It's an irrelevant point because that's your beef with it's as if Mein Kampf didn't say all the things, or that Hitler did. And well, he's not a real Nazi. All right, whatever you think the essence of actual Islam is, and I'm sure I don't mean that in a flippant way. We're judging him for what they say it is. I mean, because listen, they're going to say Hatem doesn't know what he's talking about, right? They would say he's not the real Islam. We're the real Islam. So as I've said to you before, call it whatever you want. If they would identify their movement with a different name, like Protestants changed from Christianity, came apart from Catholics, then he would call them Protestants. He's not wanting to paint Islam with a broad brush. He's using the only words which are available to him. So he tries to use radical Islam, and I think he does probably always use radical Islam. There's no, there's no
Did you
good.
ever hear him say anything positive about Islam as a group? Very rarely in interviews. But here's my point. What?
Wait. I don't. The interviews aren't about the positive aspects of Islam.
But he never
did I ever hear Glenn Greenwald say anything positive about Israel? No.
But
I'm sure he recognizes there are positive things, but usually when he's talking about his problem with Israel.
But what I'm saying, the only difference between him and me is, as I said in the interview, is I think Islam is a solution. It's part of the solution. The people, there's so many Muslims that involved. I even tell you, there's Muslim in the IDF. There's so many Muslims involved, and I think it's not fair to say that we are not fighting that fight. Versus he always trying to make it like it's us versus them. Like, let's cut it. It's a cancer. Let's cut it. Let's get rid of it, all of it. And this is what really his solution. Versus, I think
he doesn't. Well, he thinks that Israel needs to win decisively.
No, we're not talking about Israel now.
Well, the conversation was about Israel. He thinks that Israel needs to win decisively, such that the ideology, whatever you want to call that ideology, will be discredited and seen as something which only brought destruction and no success, and that at that point maybe people will start reinterpreting what they believe more in the way that you do and 1.7 Muslims do around the world. It doesn't need to be a huge number. It needs to be a significant number who think this way. But as I've said to you, one of the things I could never understand is, when forgetting about Israel, when you see the hundreds of thousands of dead, when you inadvertently actually made his point, when you describe how blow each other's mosques up, terrorists take over Mecca, he would say, yeah, that's right, actually.
No, I didn't make his point. I proved that he doesn't understand history. That's what
you contradicted a small point of his, which is that yes, they might even risk damaging the Al-Aqsa Mosque, but you actually confirmed a larger point of his, which is that in the name of this religion, Sam would be like, actually, you're right. In the name of that religion, they'll even do the things
No,
I would
no,
have thought they would have thought was unthinkable. Actually,
no,
you're
but
right. They will blow up
that's not
mosques.
true. It's not what I said. What I said is like not
It
in
is
the
what you
name of
said.
I said not in the name of the religion, because what I said is they guys are not Muslim, that they will destroy this no secret thing that we have. They're not Muslim. This is actually making my point that they're not
But
really
they say
Muslim.
they're
They can
Muslims.
say whatever they want,
Right,
I'm
but
saying, like, if they are,
Hatem, you got to listen. With due respect, if you're gonna keep at this point, there's no way to have a conversation. If
you're
they're not
trying to listen to
Muslims,
what I'm saying.
because I get it, they're not Muslims, and I'm not disputing you, but he's talking about them. Let's just call them them, okay?
Okay.
They justify everything they do in terms of Islam. You say they're not Muslims. He describes them as Muslims because they say they're Muslims because hold on, because they have countries that they're in charge of that are called the Islamic Republic of this and Islamic Republic of that. They have flags with Muslim symbols on them. They have mosques. They call to prayer. They celebrate Ramadan.
Can you tell me who you talking, who you're referring to?
Iran, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Yemen.
Saudi Arabia? Is Saudi Arabia a terrorist country?
Well, where did the 9/11 terrorists come
Talk
from?
about country. Are they? Like, are you comparing Saudi Arabia to Iran?
No, I don't know enough. Right now, I don't believe Saudi Arabia is a terrorist country, but their hands are not clean from terrorism. But we weren't. But that's not what we were talking about. I said that the hundreds of thousands of deaths within these countries in the name of Islam.
But listen to my point that I'm trying to make about that. You're right, and this is the point that I'm making, and we are fighting the same fight. We are also fighting them. He want to exclude us from that fight. That's
no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He never said anything like that.
Well, how about we bring him one day and we discuss it.
He's probably had enough. He's probably had enough of me and you. but I just listen. I don't know the guy well, but I know the guy well enough to vouch for his character here.
I didn't attack his character.
Well, you may not have meant to, but you did, and that's. I don't really want to defend his points. You know which ones I agree with and don't agree with, and points are on the up and up. I want to say that in general, it's best to not use aspersions like racist and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes you may have no choice because especially against a guy like that who really puts deep thought into the way he presents his ideas. He's very specific.
I think we can. Maybe we can continue when we, after.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't want to. I think it's not fair, but I do want to talk about it. And just for the record, I did not. I agree with some stuff that he said. I did not call him racist. I called what he said in specific topic that I pointed at the time racist was when we talk about race. But we can.
Okay.
We can actually discuss right after this. We can continue the podcast. So
no. I said everything I want to say unless Christine wants to add something.
I do want to respond. So 5 minutes after we'll talk.
Okay.
We'll get recording. But I want to go back to the fun stuff.
Sex work.
The sex work. When you see the Epstein, when you see the PDD allegation, because it's allegation right now.
Why are you mentioning Epstein? Is it because he's Jewish?
Oh, is he?
When you see Epstein, Weinstein,
anything with P in it, the allegation of PDD and all this stuff. Like, do you see them, with the sex trafficking, and usually starting at a very, very young age? Like, is Switch any part of any? Do you have any plan for like, younger girls, younger side of girls, like making decisions like that or helping them? And another thing that I said about OnlyFans before is like, I think OnlyFans should be for a certain age. I think a lot of girls, it's an easy way to make a lot of money. And then the pictures and videos are there forever. They say it's not, but it is, So Christine, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so part of Switch is the CARES program. It stands for Children's Art, Recreation, and Education Services, and it will be specific to children that survive childhood human trafficking. There is no child that chooses sex work. It is victimization every single time. And so that's its own like small section. What was the second question?
Wait. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, we say, like when you see like cases like P. Diddy and Epstein and all that, like obviously they take them through pretty much modeling. There's always somehow like female including in the grooming of those girls and stuff like that. So how do you like what how do you like I see because my main thing is like I think for me my is OnlyFans is like I think a lot of girls especially young when you hear the numbers they make in OnlyFans like oh my God I was like yeah I'll do that and nobody knows so what's your thoughts on OnlyFans in general?
I think that adults should do whatever they want to do.
Okay, so you saying adults what's like 18 and over?
Mhm.
Okay. No, Dan, any thoughts on that?
No, I want to talk more about Islam.
Yeah, me too. See, in Islam, we don't
I
have
think
that
what you're saying,
conversation.
what you're saying, Hatem, is that they think it's a good idea at the time, and it turns out not to be a good idea.
Well, you and Noam thought that law school was a good idea at the time, and
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, Noam still believes it was a good idea for him. He just didn't practice.
that's true.
Yeah, I think
I have no regrets.
in OnlyFans in one side, I feel it's a good idea, but for older. The good idea part because there is no contact, you're protected, there's no there's nothing, nobody abuse you, there's no manager in a club that gonna force you to do something or whatever, you're more protected, which I like, you're safer. And you own your own material versus porn sites and stuff like that, so this is all you, nobody's using you. But on the other hand, I feel like it's a lot of very young kids go into it too early,
Well, if they're
and
under the age of 18, they should not be involved in that in any way.
I think
Listen, 18. I mean, people make terrible mistakes. The human race has not caught up and may never catch up to the current technologies, and which are, I mean, we are people who sometimes act before we think, who act impetuously and carelessly, and now, the technology is there to catch that and remind us and our friends and the globe forever. You'll never get away from it. And this is the downside of modern technology. Maybe the law will in some way intervene, but we didn't evolve for this kind of immediacy. We just didn't, and permanence.
I think it's the whole AI generating child pornography and pornography of like Taylor Swift is a very interesting conversation.
It's gonna put OnlyFans out of work. You're gonna go to your AI. It will. You go to your AI OnlyFans, and she'll be way hotter and way and she'll over time she'll pick up on certain involuntary indications of what you like and what you don't like, and the next time you see her, she'll be even more it'll be essentially an algorithm for what you like. There was a Star Trek like this once.
I don't know if you I think you were in this episode. You remember when we did this episode about Replica, the AI app, dating app?
Oh yeah, that was stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy, but you dating the story was somebody married their replica, the date, so to do this episode, we got an expert in technology and we talked about, and I downloaded the app for a little bit, and it's crazy how this app would treat you like the perfect girlfriend, and that's I think what a lot of people, it will, like, exactly to Noam's point, it recognize what you like, recognize what you don't like every day wake up she's like fuck the Jews. No,
I was gonna say, she's like, you're right, Hatem. Islam isn't any of these things. You tell him. But she'll do it in like a Marilyn Monroe voice. Hatem, you're right. By the way, who's this woman? This woman Yasmin Mohammed who left Islam. Do you know her?
Yeah, we had her on the show. You don't remember?
Oh, we did have her on the show? Is she the one we had on the show? Oh, can you send me the link so I can send it to Sam? I wondered if that, but then I did a search. I thought maybe we did have her on the show.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And you were, what about her? Why do you want to send it to Sam?
Because I thought it would be good evidence Well, he suggested to me that you should have Yasmin Mohammed on, and I sounded familiar to me, but then I did a search and I didn't see it right away.
So again, this is what bothers me about what he wants or people like. So why don't you get a scholar? Like if you like a scholar in Islam,
He,
why
you know,
don't you?
he is a scholar.
Not in Islam,
He's a scholar in.
but he wants you to
You're
go.
doing it again. He's a scholar in what we are talking about.
No.
Listen
To what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying he asking you to get Yasmin Muhammad because just she's somebody who left the religion and doesn't like it. Get a scholar in Islam. Like if he wants you to get something, get a scholar. Don't get somebody like just like a
So
regular.
get us a scholar.
Sure.
And can we get a scholar and Yasmin on at the same time?
We had her before. I didn't feel any.
But there's a lot has changed in the world since we had her on.
You could have on Khalid Muhammad, but what's his name? No, not Khalid Muhammad.
Rashid Khalidi.
Rashid Khalidi, but he doesn't. He vowed never to come on any Noam affiliate.
No, but I feel like a lot. I feel like a lot of times if you get somebody that's angry, it's the exact same thing when you tell me let's get somebody who's very pro-Islam but angry and have no point. That's my point. I don't want somebody who's like just have no point. That's what I always try to do. I'm not trying to like react to feelings and stuff like that. But of course, if you want her, I'll bring her, no problem. But
Yeah, I would like to have her on again.
he just want my sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was years ago already. And I know a lot more than I did then, and I think I have more sophisticated questions.
Anyway,
And maybe we could ask her to watch the interview with Sam and comment on that too.
I don't know why you try to defend him so much, and have people pick his side.
Because I basically agree with him.
Sure, I agree with him. I'm not saying don't agree with him. I agree with him, but he is not. He looks for. He doesn't like Islam. Look at the comments. You don't have to look at.
Yeah, you've seen the comments they write about me, and when I say I basically agree with them, I mean I basically agree with what I believe he's saying, which is not what I think you think he's saying. So it's a weird kind of thing there. Okay,
Naturman, what did you want to say?
I forgot. I think I was trying to get back to the sex talk because that's
okay. Go ahead.
It's unfair to Christine to have her on and not discuss.
She's in law school. It should be interesting to her.
Oh, I mean, maybe.
Sex is in her past. Now she's in the realm of ideas.
But now in her future is this organization that helps people transition out of sex work.
Yeah, so she has to learn how to reason and fight and argue.
So Christine, what's the top 3 issues you think that sex workers face in general?
Discrimination, laws that don't protect them, and legal professionals that don't protect them.
It's not assault. It's not abuse by customers.
Well, I think that all of those problems stem from not having laws that protect them.
I see. Okay.
Well, what about abuse toward the customers? One time I was
that they didn't ask for. Yeah.
One time I was told that the champagne room will be worth it. Quote, I promise. And it was not worth it.
Well, you should have paid attention in contracts better.
But stuff does go on.
I couldn't complain. I just had to leave. And be like, all right, well, that was $300 poorly spent.
How much?
It's like $300 or something.
Oh, that's you didn't pay enough then. You got to spend like $1,300. This stuff does go on in the champagne room.
You probably did drink the champagne, didn't you?
No, I don't recall.
No, it's not champagne room for champagne.
But in any case,
I had experience one time where I don't remember exact details, but where a stripper got jealous that I showed interest in another stripper. It was really weird. It was very straight, like she was mental.
Well, some of them are very aggressive, and they sit there and sit on your lap, and then you don't have the heart to tell them to beat it, and then they say, do you want to dance? And it's kind of awkward.
I went to a strip club, but
I was just there for the steak.
I went to a strip club with Dan one time. Was it me, you, and Steve Fabricant? Was it?
I don't know. Where was that?
In Vegas.
Okay, right, yeah. Yeah, I got
Spearmint Rhino, I think.
yeah.
And Dan, oh my God, it was Dan was talk about a fish out of water. He was so visibly uncomfortable, and every time a girl came up to talk to me, like turn his head the other way. It was he was.
Because I didn't want to get shaken down
I know, but you're in a strip club.
I was just there to look and to have fun and to talk to you guys.
All right. Anyway, it was. I wish I had it on video. It was hilarious. If I had a better memory, I could write it into a movie script. It would be a classic scene. Anyway,
You
all
don't
right.
want to make any eye contact with any of the strippers?
So
So
again, if you do, they come over and they want to sell you a dance is the thing.
Well, they think that you're there to buy what the fuck they sell. They like, what are you doing there? It's like, no. Anyway, we got to go. I haven't been to a strip club in years. My wife allows that.
All right.
Naively, yeah.
oh, so yeah, let's stay five minutes after. We just I want to discuss this a little bit more. I want to have more respond, and then but before we go, Christine, do you want to tell us how people can where can people follow you, how they can help with Switch and all that?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at SwitchCares. The website is switchcares.org. And I appreciate everyone's support, and I'm open to hear everybody's opinions. Thanks.
Thank you.
You can't stay. I assume you're allowed to stay for the discussion on Islam, Christine. But
While I appreciate that, I have to read about securities right now.
Oh, securities are the worst.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to you. Very good. And we're gonna I'll leave a link in the description about Switch where people can follow and stuff. Thank you so much. And sorry for the jumping back and forth with
It's okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Where you look? You're near. You should come down to the cellar some night.
I would love to.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
Okay. Are
Anytime.
Like, it'd be awkward to show up and be like, "Where's Noam?" and he's not there.
Yeah, I'm there. You have my email address, right? I'm there definitely on Friday and Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights always.
Okay.
Yeah, just email me. Come down.
All right.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
I'll if you have need any help with law school, I will answer your emails. Okay, you can.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
I'm not like that. Okay, bye.
I answered her email. I don't know what she's talking about. Anyway.
Maybe she said she asked you some questions that you didn't answer, but maybe you didn't see the email. You're actually one of the very good people in responding. You respond right away.
And if you think he responds to you, imagine how he responds to her.
Yeah. So back to Sam, because I think one of the important things is I think that you did is you allowed the other side to say an answer, and I don't want that to be taken away in a way that I don't think if people say like, oh, well, it's not fair for him because he say something, so you take that part of like being able to respond, because I think having
I always believe it's interesting and in good faith requires people being able to respond.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I think you should continue with that.
Of course I will, and I don't think Sam would disagree with that.
No, but I'm saying like when people say like when you say like stuff, he didn't mean that and he didn't mean that, you have to understand there's certain things that can trigger people differently. There's certain things that I can understand from his conversation that maybe you wouldn't understand, and it's not based on feeling or characters. I mean, you know me a little bit, not a little bit, you know me a lot,
Yeah.
and you know him a little bit. You know that I wouldn't, judge a person based on I didn't even judge him based on previous interviews that he said a lot of bad things. I didn't even do that, or certain quotes and books or whatever. I think that he understand, and I think this is one of the things that I said in the comments. I think we both identify the problem, and I think we both know what the problem is, but I think that he is saying that in his views that this problem is most likely going to spread in the whole he said in Belmar, it's book full of problems, it's book full. This is what he said, this is what he believes, and I believe that he believed that, and fine, let him believe that. So he believes that the book is a problem, that the people that read the book is a problem, that this is going to spread to all over, so he want to cut it off. I think that the book is not the problem. Understanding of the book is a problem, and there's a major problem there because there's a lot of middlemen that explain it wrong. And that based on that, you have that. But on the other side, you have so many people that fighting against that, and those people getting hurt just like the rest of the world getting hurt. And we should be together in the same fight. That's
Right.
what I'm trying to say. When he say get somebody like Yasmin Mohammed, by the way, she's a friend. I don't think, Yasmin, I think she does great work in term of helping little girls and stuff like that in abuser's house. But views in Islam, if you want to get somebody, when he says just the fact that he says something like that, it is like,
Okay.
you
All
know,
right. You are friends with her?
I mean, yeah, we friends and on emails. She doesn't live here, but
Yeah. So, look, maybe it comes down to this and then we'll end. As a rule of thumb, I don't think it's good to make a point about someone or something that they said in such a way that if the reader or the listener agrees with you, they then must also conclude that the person you're talking about has a bad character or is a bad person. This is what
did I make it sound like that?
Yes, this is what people do to Coleman all the time. Anytime, whether it was about race or about Derek Chauvin, anytime somebody takes on Coleman, in the end, you have to believe he's a charlatan, he's an Uncle Tom, he's a fraud, he's a this, which we know Coleman is 100% not true. They can never just say, I see it very differently than he does. I think he's wrong about this, and that. And
that's what I said. I only said he talks down. And even the people disagree with me said, yes, he did talk down. Like a lot of people. This is what the part
it's not any one thing. It's a sum total. So that's what I would say. That's what I try to do. I mean, I don't always do it. I did call Rashid Khalidi a liar. But that's because he was fucking lying, dead to rights. I mean, there are limits. But in general,
he was on in your interview.
Yeah, okay. It was when the Baptist hospital was supposedly bombed in Gaza.
Literally, you're a liar. I think.
No, after that, I did in the intro to the show. I said he's lying because there was at that time there was still some question whether or not the incident had happened. And he said, I know it happened because I have friends who work in the hospital and they told me. Now, obviously, he didn't have friends who work in the hospital who told him because it didn't happen. So it's just despicable. But other than that, you see me on Twitter, whatever it is, I try to not do that because it's not helpful to the debate. So that's that. But of course, I believe in this stuff, and we'll see where it goes from here. Let's have Yasmin. You got.
But okay, but again, I don't understand why not getting a scholar versus getting some like what is like
I think he is a scholar of what it is he was talking about.
I'm not him. Well, he's not. He talks a lot about Islam, and he's not a scholar in Islam. He doesn't. He said repeatedly that the book is full of problems. The book is this, and
let's have both. Let's have Yasmin Mohammed and somebody from the other side. Let's air it out.
Well, it's fine. Like just like again, you're gonna get somebody based on feelings. Have a bad situation.
You've had her on before. You said she's your friend. I mean,
well, you can agree with and disagree with people. I don't care about.
I'll listen. I would like to have her on. She was on Sam Harris. She knows the religion personally.
No, she doesn't.
Well, she grew up as a Muslim.
Well, a lot of people grow up whatever, and they don't understand If I ask her,
you're getting to the point where anybody doesn't agree with you.
Oh, no,
doesn't understand the religion. But it's what I mean.
True.
So who disagrees with you about this stuff? But you say they do understand the religion.
A lot of people. And they
let's get one of them on then.
Sure. Yeah, I got a lot of people that disagree with me in the religion. What my point with Yasmin or anybody that says like I think Yasmin have a certain experience that she have a very bad experience, which I totally sympathize with. It's a horrible story, and reflected on that. But I think we need the times where we say, I don't like cheerleaders for Muslims either. You know, I think somebody that should come is like, listen, there are major problems, you know, and the middlemen should explain what the religion really say. I think that's true. The guy that I put in Twitter, the one that says like, you know, who really killed the children? Hamas didn't build one bomb shelter. Who really is responsible? Who started 7 wars? Like a guy like that. I mean, we cannot get again because he's like big deal, but you know, I don't know if he speaks English, but you know, a guy like this was like, yes, we have a major problem. We do, you know, but we suffer just like that you before. Hamas killed so many of us. Hamas did this. Those are people
suffer more. And as a matter of fact, he said in one of his longer monologues, Sam actually talked about, was it thousands of terrorist attacks in the Islamic world? He talks about that. He didn't talk, maybe not in my but I've heard him talk about how Muslim people suffer more from this. It's not about the Jews.
He does a lot of things that, you know, but I said the fundamental disagreement is he thinks that the book is a problem. So therefore, everyone that's going to believe in it is going to be categorized a certain way. I believe it's not a problem. And a lot of people that actually believe in it are the solution. That's the only thing.
All right. Okay.
You know?
All right. But, you should go back and listen to it. It was
I think
listen, it's a free country. You can say what you want. I thought it was a bit harsh. But
you said the same thing about him when you first heard his interview. You said it was a bit harsh.
He was. I think I said he was more direct than I've ever heard him, which could also be because of the fact they're not in the same room. He didn't equivocate, but he didn't call people names and things like that. Whatever. You can go back. I don't need to.
Dan, any thoughts? Have you
take sides here? I want to wrap it up. Go ahead.
I have not, but I will. Noam wants to wrap it up, and seems like a reasonable idea to me.
Okay. when will you post this?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Why does it take so long?
Tuesdays are the best day to post podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
No, the Abigail Schreier, you want to discuss trans issues or mental health issues or
discuss both.
We have a trans episode coming. We have an expert 2 weeks from now as well.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you heard about Mark Levine? Oh, we should bring Mark Levine again. You know, the Manhattan Borough president. Because the school that just passed the no athletic trans in teams, and he was big opposed of it. You know, so we should bring him again.
Okay. All right.
What a good.
Live America podcast.
See you later.
Thank you.